Hey guys, Jason here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing my October book recommendation for Halloween. So these are all going to be horror novels. These are all going to be books that I think are really fun to read during the Halloween season and will give you nightmares, hopefully. Now, these are all books that I have not recommended on the channel, at least not that I know of, or that I can remember. But yeah, so I've kind of broken them down into categories, and I've got like a main recommendation and then an alternate, just in case you've already read that book and you want something that's similar. So I'm going to start today with my haunted house recommendation, and that book that I recommend is Hell House by Richard Matheson. This book's amazing. It's really, really gross at times. It's provocative and weird, and gets in your head, and it's just an awesome book, and you should really read it. Richard Matheson is a master of the horror genre, and this book really deserves your attention. Now, if you've read that book, then an alternate recommendation would be The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. They are similar in a lot of ways. I think this book is a lot less graphic, like as far as like the bloody bits and the sexy bits, but as far as like the psychological horror piece of it, there's a lot more of that going on. You're much more in the head of the main character in this novel, and yeah, it's great. And this one I think was published first, so I think Hell House actually took a lot of inspiration from The Haunting of Hill House. So if you haven't read The Haunting of Hill House, you almost should read that first and then read the Hell House. But regardless, that's my recommendation. The next set is going to be vampire novels. I'm not going to recommend Dracula because everyone's read Dracula. I mean, come on. And in fact, I almost didn't want to recommend this one because it's another one that pretty much everyone's read. But it's one of my favorite vampire novels. It's probably my favorite vampire novel. Salem's Lot by Stephen King. It's amazing. It captures the feeling of fall, and the setting is just so great. It's like a small little town being overrun by vampires. The vampires are actually scary and not sexy, and it's just so good. If you haven't read Salem's Lot, you really need to check it out. And then the alternate is going to be more in the sexy vampire sort of vein, although this particular sexy vampire is a badass. And this is Nancy Collins, Sunglasses After Dark. This book is awesome. The main character, Sonia Blue, she's awesome. She's a vampire, and she's really, really cool. She's a prostitute during part of the book. It's great. It's a great vampire. It's not like it's just fun vampire story. So check that out if you want just a really fun vampire story. And it's a series. There's multiple books in the series. I haven't read any of the other ones. I've only read this one, but this one was great and highly recommended. Next is short stories. So short stories are really great for this time of year because, like you got your like campfire stories and things like that. Like they're short. You can read them in like, an hour. My recommendation is The Books of Blood by Clive Barker. And there are many volumes of this. I think there's 6 volumes. I've read the first 3, and which is what I've got here. 1, 2, 3. There's like 5 stories per volume, and they're quick reads. They're really, really good. Clive Barker is super bloody, and his main characters are usually like sort of fringy. Like he's got one story about a male prostitute that like whatever, and then like stuff like that. Like he's very like progressive in that way. They're just awesome stories. They're great for the Halloween season. Highly recommend those. And then as an alternate, we're gonna go Stephen King, Night Shift. This is probably my favorite short story collection from Stephen King. It's super good. There's like a lot of really, really good stories in here. There's a couple of duds, I'd say, but like they're just fun, and they're not like, this is back when Stephen King like didn't take himself too seriously. Like he's got a story about like a laundry machine that gets haunted. Like it's called The Mangler. That's one of my favorite stories in here. Trucks, about haunted trucks. He's got a story, The Boogeyman, which is like kind of like a precursor to It, maybe. It's just a great book. You should definitely read Night Shift. The next set is going to be historical fictional horror. What I'm talking about is horror that's based on true events, but adds like some kind of supernatural element to make it horror, I guess. And so my first recommendation is going to be The Hunger by Alma Katsu. This is a book that is based on the Donner Party, which, if you're not familiar with the Donner Party, they're a group of people who were traveling across the country to California, and they got trapped in the mountains by the snow, and they had to live there, and in order to survive, they resorted to cannibalism. And this book is very historically accurate outside of the supernatural elements that she like kind of peppers in there. And I have a review of this. I'll post it in the thing. You can check that out. But this book was great. I really enjoyed it. And if you like more historically sort of focused horror, this is a great one. And now the next one is the only book on this list that I haven't actually read. I know enough about it that I can recommend it, and I've heard that it's amazing. I do want to get to this book at some point. The Terror by Dan Simmons. Now, this one is based on a ship voyage into the Antarctic that, kind of similar to The Hunger, is peppered. It's a true story peppered with some supernatural stuff that makes it fiction. And apparently it's amazing. Again, haven't read it, but I do recommend it. I know enough about it that I can recommend it. I recommend it to myself. Maybe I'll get to it this year. Who knows? Next, I've got some books that are just straight up pulpy horror trash. I don't want to call it trash because these books are really good, but you know what I mean. They're just fun. They're not gonna like change the way you think about the world. They're not gonna do anything like that. They are what they are. You can read them at surface level and you can just enjoy them, and they're great. So the first one here is The Rats by James Herbert. It is what it sounds like. It is a story about giant mutant rats that overrun an entire city and just start eating and killing people. And it is freaking awesome. Like, there are some scenes in this that will make you cringe. It will make your guts twist. And it is awesome. So that is it's so good. And the bonus here is that it is part of a trilogy. So if you like The Rats, you can read Lair, which is basically more of the same. And then Domain is the third and final book in the Rats trilogy. And this one goes into another level, like another atmosphere. It's crazy. And I highly recommend the entire series. It's so good. Yeah, if you like creature horror, if you like creature feature stuff, those books are great. Now, this one, this recommendation is not quite so creature-y, but it's more like, it's Thinner by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. This is about a guy who gets cursed by some gypsy witches, and it's not exactly a creature horror, but it's the same kind of thing where you can just like read it on the surface level and you don't have to think too deep. It is very good. It's just a fun read, and you can read it in a few days and just get the story, and it's great. It's a really good book. I highly recommend this one. And now the last coupling that I'm going to recommend is for people who maybe don't read horror very often. They maybe read more literary books, but want to sort of read some literary horror, I guess. And this book will mess with your head. This book is called The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It's maybe the most depressing book I've ever read. Post-apocalyptic, crazy book about a man and his son trying to survive in this bleak world where nothing is good, everything is horrible, you can't trust anybody, and it is just so powerful and so crazy. And I mean, I don't know, some people maybe wouldn't consider this horror, but it's pretty dark. It's horrific, to say the least. Now, my alternate for that, and this one I actually probably wouldn't even consider this horror, but there's definitely scenes in it that are horrific. And this one is Blindness by Jose Saramago. Now, this book, it's about a blindness that affects people. Like, basically, people just start to go blind. And how society deals with those things. And, man, it is crushing. It is so, so sad. But like I said, these are more literary books than horror specifically. But, man, if you want to read something that will like upset you and make you really, really think about how people interact with each other on a daily basis, this book will ruin your life. It is so good. So, anyway, those are the 12 or however many books that I recommend you guys pick one of those. Just pick one and read it during Halloween. And tell me what you think. Let me know in the comments. If you guys have read any of these books and agree with my assessment of them, please let me know. If you disagree, also let me know. Like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. And that's all I got. So, I hope you guys have a wonderful fall and a safe Halloween. And happy reading. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.